Hey guys, back again. We left our story last time. Mum was in Hong Kong on her way to Australia for a peanut butter and Vegemite sandwich and some Weet-Bix. So we're going to pick up today on that journey to Australia. And so Mum, here you are, Hong Kong. You've gone through a bit of a kerfuffle with Anatoly dying, losing the visa, stuck in Hong Kong longer than you thought, which is an international port. And here you guys are looking at the boat on the dock there in Hong Kong, looking at that boat that's going to take you to freedom. Yeah, tell us about it.
As a child, Hong Kong was very fun time for us, you know, because everybody around us, they sort of tried to make our time as easy as possible.
Yep.
It was more trying for Mum and Grandma because they understood the repercussions and things that were going on. But we boarded the ship and we sailed out of Hong Kong. And we sailed out of Hong Kong, and it was a pretty uneventful voyage, I suppose. 2 weeks on sea, and then we came to the equator.
So two weeks from Hong Kong to the equator?
To Australia.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Yeah. And halfway through it, I'm not too sure just exactly where the equator would have been. They have a ceremony, and that happens with all these ships. It's just a naval tradition that they have the Neptune on board and they throw people in the pool, and it's a service. Yes, it was very interesting.
Throwing people in the pool?
In the pool, yeah. It had a pool on the ship.
So it's either a circus or a riot?
Yes, exactly.
So, I don't know, it depends on which end of the...
I think most of the people that were thrown into the pool were staff.
Okay, yeah.
So they would have been prepared for that. And then we arrived in Australia.
Okay, yep.
In Townsville.
Townsville.
We had a stopover in Townsville. We disembarked the ship. My mother got out of the ship. She dropped on her knees and she kissed the soil.
She would have been relieved, like...
Well, to me as a child, I just saw the motions.
Yeah.
Now I can understand what she would have gone through to be so relieved that the journey has finished. One journey has finished and another one began. So we only were there for the day. We disembarked, walked around and had a look. Got back on the ship, and then a couple of days later we sailed through the Heads into Sydney.
Oh, like at the
harbour. I think they called them the Heads. As an entry into the Sydney harbour.
Yeah, okay.
In there, yes. That's sort of was quite interesting.
So did you know anything about Sydney?
No.
Did you know you were going to Sydney?
Well, Sydney was just a name for me. It was just a name. Mum was probably more, but for me, we knew we were going to go to a new place. I knew that we were going to go to a new lifestyle and everything. But as what I would have been about 8, 8-year-old, it was just
minor, little detail, just concepts.
Especially what we've gone through the previous 9 months, from leaving Harbin, Tenzin, Hong Kong, and now we're finally arriving at our destination in Sydney.
Mm.
So sailing through their heads, and then I saw the Sydney Harbour Bridge.
Yeah, yeah.
And we berthed at Watermaloo Wharf there. That's where the ship berthed.
Is that like the rocks?
Yeah, at the Rocks area.
Yeah.
I think it's where now they build this Sydney Opera House. Is that wharf
Oh,
there?
yeah.
And looking straight at Circular Quay there, and
Yeah.
I was just saw the trains running on the bridge, and saw the trains running on the Circular Quay there, where they come out of the tunnel and going. So that was interesting.
Mm-hmm.
And then we disembarked, and there was a welcoming committee for us.
Oh, okay. Someone knew you were coming.
Oh, yeah.
So who was there to meet you?
Pastor Rodionov. He was the minister of the Russian church there.
Oh, okay.
And Auntie Helen, which was Uncle Vic's wife. Auntie Mary, who was Uncle Vic's sister-in-law.
Mm-hmm.
And her son Yuri.
Mm-hmm.
He was about a year older than me, and he came with a block of chocolates.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Very, very shy.
Yeah.
And so was I. Yeah. So that was our welcoming committee.
Mm-hmm.
And after we went through the formalities and everything, Pastor Rodionov had a Holden car.
Mm-hmm.
It was dark green and light green
Yeah, okay.
in colour. I don't know what model it was or anything like that, but in 1956, it,
Could be an FBC, something like that.
anything. It's irrelevant, I suppose. But that was my first ride in the car. Probably my first ride in the car, because in Harbin and things they were very rare. In Tenzin, we used the public transport, which was trams and buses. But in Australia, it was the first time I would have had a car ride.
Well, thinking about transport and that, no cars, buses, planes, boats, they all have seats.
Yeah.
And I'd like you to rotate your seat a little to your right, please.
This
Yep,
way?
perfect.
Yeah. Okay.
Thank you. So here we are in the Rocks, or
Well,
the
I didn't know
port.
it was the Rocks.
Yeah.
It was just...
That's the only place I know. That.
Yeah,
At the was it Opera House there at the time?
Oh, no.
Okay.
Oh, no.
So here we are at the future pad of the Opera House, and you had some folks. So did you know the pastor before?
Oh, no.
So it would have been like through Vic,
On your
Uncle Vic,
yeah.
his connection with the locals.
With absolutely...
Brought a bit of a tribe with you. And so where'd you live? Like, where'd you go from there?
From there, Pastor Rodionov took us to his place, and it was raining. It was really... Well, it wasn't heavy rain, but it was a steady rain. And we had to walk from the road to the house on the footpath.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And all I could hear was crunching under my feet, and I was thinking, what is this? Looking down and see what it was. And well, it was night time by that time, so I didn't see anything. Next morning, I got up and had a look, and there was all these dead snails there that we have trodden on.
The snail massacre.
Massacre, yeah. Well, you can imagine all the people walking on them.
Yeah, a lot of footprints.
A lot of footprints, yes.
So you went to his place?
Yes, we did, yes.
So what, did you live with him for a while?
Yes,
or?
we did, yes. He had one spare room. It wasn't a big house, but he had a spare room. And the four of us lived in that room until probably a couple of months, maybe even longer. I don't know. I don't know the time frame. In the meantime, Mum got a job at Prince Alfred Hospital.
Yep.
So her job there was as a cleaner, and she was scrubbing floors and things like that, which was quite a cultural shock for her, I would say, because 12 months ago, she was a socialite in Harbin.
Living in a big house with maids and servants.
Yeah. And being right up there, you know, in the social, although a lot of people in Harbin were leaving the area, but still, you know, that's what she was accustomed to.
Yeah.
Accustomed to. So I really take my hat off for her. And the pay wasn't all that much at the hospital. So Auntie Mary, who was Uncle Vic's sister-in-law.
Okay, yep.
Uncle Vic and Uncle Nick, they were brothers. So she was working at Arnott's biscuit factory, and she got a job for Mum at the factory there, packing biscuits, of course.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
And it was a lot of hard work, 12-hour shifts for her, and but she persevered with it because, well, money was short, only one income.
Well, single parent family.
Exactly.
You had your mum.
In a strange country. She didn't know any English. None of us knew any English or spoke any English, you know. So it was a very foreign environment for us. So in the meantime, Auntie Helen, Uncle Vic's wife, she helped Mum to access the funds and things that Anatoly transferred to Brazil after the war, because he foresaw that we would be leaving the country and we'd be going to Brazil, and this would have been 5 or 6 years prior us leaving. I'm not too sure the time frame. It was after the war, and so there was some money there. So Auntie Helen, through her contacts and that, because they lived in Australia for about 5 years before we did. They arrived in Australia 5 years before we did. And so she got all the legals and helped Mum all the documents and to access that money, the assets from Brazil.
So Auntie Helen had reasonable English as well as Russian.
Oh yes, Russian was perfect.
But with
English as well.
Yeah, cool.
I think she worked in a legal office as a junior or something like that. A very minor role, but she had the contacts by that time. So I don't know how long it took. Mum got the funds and then started looking for a house of her own so that she could call her own. Now, Auntie Helen, Uncle Vic and Basarodianov, they were all on the ball there looking for a place. They found one in Lakemba, not very far from where Basarodianov was living, and it was a dilapidated old duplex.
Okay, yeah.
But the price was right. With limited funds and everything else, she just had enough scraped off to put a deposit on. And she also had some jewellery that she concealed bringing it into Australia. She had a few diamond rings, and I don't really know everything that she had, but Auntie Helen also helped her to sell that.
Cash it in.
To cash it in. And anyway, so there was enough funds for her to put a deposit on this dilapidated house.
Well, that's cool. But I guess dilapidated means what?
Well, the grass was probably 3 feet high all around. It was quite a large block. In my eyes, as a child, it was large, but probably when I looked back on it after a visit there years and years later, it wasn't all that big. You know, but in child's eyes, it was.
Yeah.
And the house inside, the ceilings were all just about falling down. It needed painting. It probably needed some wiring and plumbing and all of that. I don't know. I just know that the church got behind Mum, and the men in the church, they were about the same age in their 30s and with young families and things like that. The men would give up their Sundays and come and do the work.
That's cool.
That was really, really cool when I think about it.
That's community.
Community, yes. You don't see that very often these days.
Well, I think I've seen it more in... I've seen it in Australian culture, by all means,
Yes.
but a lot of the European seems to be a lot more like tighter knit. Other cultures, South Pacific Islanders,
Yes.
pulling together.
They're pulled together. That's right, exactly. Because you don't have a lot of interaction with other culture. Even Australia, you've got a barrier language. You can't talk, you can't communicate. So that's a big barrier.
So they're fixing up the place for you guys.
Yes,
helping out there.
And what Mum saw in that duplex was there was a separate room, a very large room, with its own kitchen. So Mum's plan was to rent that room out with the kitchen, and that helped with paying the mortgage.
Yep.
We had, our part of it was a lounge room, one bedroom, a sleep out closed in veranda that Grandma and I slept in, and Mum and Tamara slept in the bedroom, and there was a long narrow kitchenette at the back of the house that had the stove and then the table and chairs there. So we moved in there, and Mum, of course, with Auntie Helen's help, went to second-hand shops and bought some furniture and all of that stuff that you need for a house. So it was very comfortable, I think. As a child, we had food, we had clothes, and what else can you possibly sort of want? So, and then when we moved to the house, I started school at Lakemba State School, which was probably about 10 minutes walk away, and didn't know a word of English, basically. Tamara, they put her in grade 1 because she was younger than me.
At Lakemba?
At Lakemba, the same school, but they had what they called infant school. So grade 1, 2 and 2 were in one building or one compound, and then grade 3, 4, 5 and 6 was at another compound, next door to each other, but it was separated. So I went to school there. My grandma and Auntie Helen came and enrolled us in school, and we met the headmistress. One of the things was that I'm a left-hander. And my grandmother was so anti-left-hander, you don't write. So I was taught to write with my right hand. But if you notice when I'm doing things, picking up a hammer or doing anything, I do it with my left hand. So predominantly I'm a left-hander and things. So grandmother was horrified to see this lady in front of us, a headmistress, a left-hander, writing with a left hand.
Oh, welcome to a new perspective.
A new perspective. Yeah, so, but she was a horrible old woman.
The mistress.
She was a miss, and her name was Miss Moncrief. And we used to call her Miss Monkey. She looked like a monkey. And she acted like a monkey for us kids. I wasn't the only one that called her Miss Monkey. All the other kids and I just followed suit.
Sounds like you ganged up on her.
Well, we probably did. And of course, in those days, it was very much anti-immigrants coming into Australia. We were called bloody new Australians. Go back where you came from, and talk about being bullied at school. Well, that was just,
happening for you guys.
Happening very much for us. We didn't know. We just dealt with it. We didn't go crying to Mum saying, so-and-so or anything like that. You just put up with it.
Yeah. Yeah, more resilient possibly than the direction the culture's heading for today.
Yeah, oh,
Yeah.
absolutely. And we weren't mollycoddled like parents do today. You know, we had to learn to fend for ourselves. We were taught independence. Well, I was, I suppose,
Yeah.
because I had to take over the responsibility of going and paying all the bills. Mum couldn't go take time off from work to go and pay them.
Because she's packing bickies.
Yeah, she was back in Biggies.
Yeah.
And the leave from work was not as generous as what it is now. So I think you were allowed a few days sick leave or something like that a year. Otherwise, you just turned up for work. So that fell on my shoulders. And
To go pay the bill, like be the messenger, because obviously there's no internet.
yeah, no,
You'd
there was
have
no
to,
phones.
You'd have to go pay in person.
In person.
Yeah.
There was no checks, there was no credit cards, there was nothing. Cash. She would give me cash
Yep.
with the bill to pay rates, electricity, gas, or anything else that came up that needed, you know. And sometimes I had to travel all the way into Sydney CBD after school.
I can see a pattern happening here, Mum.
Yes.
Maybe that's where your travel bug started come from. Harbin, Tenzing, Hong Kong, Sydney, and now you're travelling the inner city.
In the city.
Paying bills.
Paying bills,
Yes, so-
well, maybe, I don't know. I never thought of that. Thanks, Rod.
Oh, well, look, just an observation.
It was an adventure, I suppose, for me.
It would be.
You know, and especially if I went into CBD, going to George Street and main city streets and going all the shops. Mark Boy's was a big shop there. David Jones was there. And I'd go in the shops and look at the clothes and everything else, and then hop on the train and go back home. And the thing is, nobody bothered you. We used to go to church on Saturday. We never used to lock the house. The windows and doors would be unlocked, and it was safe to do that. So that's how Australia, I suppose other countries as well, have changed from 1956 to what it is now. And it's so sad to see that happening.
It would be. Just thinking about another change.
Yes.
You've changed your seating position again.
Sorry.
Thanks.
Yeah.
It's just, it's just,
Yeah.
But yeah,
Well,
so
straight on you. Yeah.
So you can see that you've seen changes from what it was when you came here, around 57-ish.
56.
Six.
At the end of 56.
Yeah. So around 56, 7. What's that? That's 60, 40. That's like about 65 years, roughly.
Nearly 70 years.
Thereabouts, yeah.
Yeah, it was. That's right. Massive changes happened in that, like in Australia. Some were probably for the good and some were for the bad.
So
That happens in every country, I suppose. But yes.
So how's Grandma going at this time?
My grandma, she was good. She loved gardening. And once the men cut the grass down in the on the property,
Yep.
there was plenty of space for a garden. They already had sort of like gardens laid out with bricks and things like
okay,
that.
yep.
Just
Overgrown.
and totally neglected. And of course, we didn't have any money to buy plants. So we discovered that they used to have curbside collection for cuttings and prunings of
Like
people's
green waste.
green waste.
Yeah,
green
yeah.
waste. So my grandmother and I used to take a bag and we used to go and collect all these cuttings,
Yep.
roses and all sorts of everything that was sort of planned, because we just did not have the money to do it. And we had the most beautiful rose garden, one of the best rose gardens I've ever seen, because Grandma had green fingers.
Well,
And
being a
everything-
country girl,
Yes.
in a place where there's no supermarkets,
Yeah.
which
Well,
means
yeah.
you need a green finger.
You need a green finger. And they didn't have supermarkets then either. You went into little corner shops to buy your groceries and fruit and things like that.
Okay. Yep.
And nothing was prepackaged. Flour, corn, any of those, rice, everything was in big drawer boxes.
Yep. Yep.
You came in and you got a bag, scooped it in, put it in there, they weighed, and you
Yeah.
sort of, that's the way you went shopping.
I can see a resemblance too of you and Grandma going around getting cuttings or sick plants, because you've told me stories. You go to Bunnings and you look for the wounded plants and you bring them home and you resuscitate them.
Especially orchids.
Yeah, well, look, I know many a times you look for the underdog.
Oh, always.
Yeah,
It's a challenge.
yeah, yeah.
It's always been a challenge to plant them in the garden and see them come good and reward you by flowering and things like that. Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah,
nice.
it's true. And that's where I developed my passion for gardening, I think, from Grandma. I inherited from her, I think. Mum didn't have time for it.
Yeah, well, being a single mum,
Yeah.
you'd understand now in hindsight.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And so that was sort of us moving into Lakemba.
So how long were you guys in Lakemba? Roughly.
Probably about until we moved to Brisbane. I think when
Okay.
I was probably about 4 or 5 years.
So 4 or 5 years, and then, so how did the move to Brisbane transpire?
Transpired. Mum came with the few ladies from the church to Brisbane because Brisbane also had a Russian church here.
Okay.
And they had a temperance society conference. So she came up here and she met Stefan
Yep.
Dudarko.
Okay.
So, and he was single, she was single, and the ladies did a bit of matchmaking there. and so they started corresponding, and he used to come to Brisbane in an old Bedford utility,
Yep.
grey one, rattled all the way here, rattled all the way back. So, and sometimes she would ask the neighbours, they had a phone, and we used to pay for the phone call to ring
Stefan.
Step up. He did, Mum did, and sometimes they would say, all right, I'm going to ring you at such and such a time. So Mum would be waiting for the phone call. And that's so, that was sort of in Sydney. It was happy times.
In Sydney?
In Sydney.
Yep.
We were settled, and it was a very strong church community there. And because we used to have the church services at the Book and Bible House in the city, they didn't have a church at that stage.
Okay.
So we hired the hall there. That was in Bathurst Street, which ran off George Street.
Still got the names there?
Oh yes, yeah, absolutely. And you had to travel by train to Town Hall Station, through the tunnels there, and come up for air type of thing.
Yeah, up to the surface of
Up
the
to the
planet.
surface. But I think it would have been about once a month. The whole church used to bring food, and we used to go to Hyde Park, which was not very far away, a few blocks away, and we'll have a picnic there.
Yeah.
And also the family, like the Meslikov family and the extended family, they used to hire a house at Woy Woy at Christmas time for holidays.
Yeah, yeah. Central Coast.
Central Coast there, yeah. And they would invite us to go and spend some time with them. So that was really awesome because it was full of kids. Everybody had kids.
Yeah. So this is Vic and Helen.
And not so much Vic and Helen, but Uncle George and his, like, there were 4 sisters
All right.
apart from the Mislikov family.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Right? And they were very close together.
Yep.
One was married to Uncle George. He used to work at the Sanitarium biscuit factory. One was married to, I can't remember his name, but they had a poultry farm.
Mm-hmm.
And the others I can't remember. But anyway, there was 4 sisters and their families. They would hire a holiday house in Woy Woy. And we were part of it, you know. So
that's nice.
everybody was really very, very helpful and very supportive, both to us kids and also to Mum and Grandmother. I didn't have a male role model in my life.
Right. It's true.
I didn't have one. No.
So I guess, how would you say, how did you feel like with the prospect of going to Brisbane, because of Mum and Stepan's relationship obviously is growing, and you just spent the last 4 or 5 years connecting with the church community, the Russian church community down there. What's going on for you?
I had mixed feelings.
Mm-hmm.
Because I was looking forward, I was finished grade 6, and through that, from grade 3 to grade 6, I had this awesome, supportive teacher.
Mm-hmm.
And I was going to go to high school. To high school, to go to Adventist school there.
Mm-hmm.
And of course I didn't.
Mm-hmm.
We moved here. I was happy for Mum. And I said to Stepan, I said, if you're going to be good to my mother, I'll call you Dad.
So did he?
I ruled the.
So did he come to the party?
Oh yes, he did.
Yeah.
As much as he could. I mean, he took on a 9-year-old. No, by that time I was 12, and Tamara would have been about 10. Yeah, she was 18 months younger than me. So I don't think the transition was that drastic for Tamara because she was younger and she adapted more. So that's when we sort of packed everything up and came to Brisbane. And Stepan, or Dad, I should refer to him as Dad because that's what he was to me.
You had a deal.
Yeah, we had a deal.
He came good on it?
Yes, yes, absolutely. And he had this old converted army ambulance. It was quite a large truck. And so he came rattling down our street in Sydney to load everything up and take us to Brisbane.
Okay, yep.
Now, that was a very trying journey.
How so?
There was no room for anybody on the back of that truck by the time they put all the furniture on.
Okay.
And Mum, Grandma and Dad sat in the front in the cabin.
So 3, usually there were bench seats back then.
Yes, there were.
1 bench seat.
Yeah.
3, you could probably cram a kid in there, but what would you do with the other kid?
What the other kid, that's right. No. So they were in the front and Tamara and I had to sit at the back of the truck with our feet hanging over the edge of the truck. There was no there was nothing. We were just sitting like I'm sitting now at the back of the truck like this with a bit of rope that probably would have broke at the slightest weight or something like that. So it was a challenge because if you want to go to the toilet or anything like that, which Tamara did one time, trying to get their attention, they couldn't hear anything because it wasn't soft engine in that big thing.
No, the exhausts weren't quiet like they are. And
it'd
be rattling away.
The This is
Yeah.
this was a war vehicle,
Yeah.
so you know.
It's a truck.
It's a truck.
It's a truck.
1940s.
Yeah.
I would say, you know,
Be pretty rugged
pretty rugged.
to
Yeah.
today's standards.
Yeah. And also no suspension on it probably and things like that. So we took New England Highway, come to Brisbane.
So it was called a highway back then?
Yes, it was New England
Yeah,
Highway.
okay.
I think so. I think so. I can't swear by it, but I know that was the route that we used to take when we used to go to Sydney for visits and things like that, New England Highway. There was Pacific Highway, which was the coast road, and then you had the New England Highway, which was the inland coast
I
road.
remember when I was young, you and Dad taking us down on trips, and we always used to go down the New England
Highway.
And so now it makes sense. That was your home base.
It was more direct and the quicker route because in those days, Pacific Highway had a lot of river crossings because it was so close to the coast.
Yeah.
It had you had to catch a barge to go
Oh,
from
wow.
one bank to the other. There was no bridges, so it was a very, very slow,
Tedious
trip. Yeah.
Okay. There you go. I just recently taught my students, we did a unit on bridge building.
Yes.
And the effect or impact on society is taking tedious travel to freeway travel. So
you can tell them it's sort of certainly changed in that time. But just about, as you know, there's a lot of rivers that emptied out into the ocean there because it was very close to the ocean and things. So there was only one way across, and that was a barge.
well, there's quite a few major rivers between, even along the coast road today, but obviously they've got bridges.
Yes.
And they probably largely go unnoticed.
You don't. You just fly over them and you take it for granted. That's what it was, you know.
So you're rattling up the New England Highway.
Yes.
Was it dirt, bitumen?
Oh, it was all dirt road.
Yeah, okay.
And if you're familiar with the road from Sydney going through Windsor and through Singleton and things and getting into Scone was one of the, that's where we stopped for the night. And all of that road was extremely windy. I think it still is probably.
Relatively,
but it wasn't bitumised.
Yeah.
So when we got to Scone, Dad booked us into the hotel. We went to the bathroom, had a look at the bathroom in the mirror, and both Tamara and I were like Kimmy is, that tan colour, covered in dust. Absolutely. All you can see was our lips basically and our whites of the eyes. So that was an experience. We didn't have any change of clothes. So we sort of slept in our undies and things, and Grandma took our top clothes and shook them outside to get the dust out of them and everything else like that. And we had to put it back on again, you know, work with that. And so we continued our journey. It was a little bit better, a little bit more bitumen, but still...
as you went north?
North, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
And but it was still a very rugged road. I think we took a shortcut from Sydney to Singleton, but the main New England Highway went from Singleton to Maitland and joined up to the highway. But we took the shortcut, which was, horrendous. And
yeah, so how long did that take on the back of a truck?
we spent 2 nights in different Scone, and I was trying to think where we spent the second night. I can't remember.
Okay, so 3 days travel? If you slept 2 nights, you travelled...
2 nights probably, probably 3 days.
Maybe 3 day travel.
Yeah, probably,
Out in the elements.
In the elements. I think we might have stopped at Glen Ennis or one of the
northern parts of...
yes.
So where were you heading to?
Where we were heading to?
What part of Brisbane?
What part of Brisbane? Now, I think Mum already bought the house in Darra from memory. I can't remember. So I think we were heading there.
Okay.
But we had the challenge of getting over Cunningham's Gap.
Oh, yeah, that's a pretty steep climb in a little bit of length of road. Yeah, it's steep.
It was once one way
in
those days.
Huh.
One way, and it wasn't bitumen. So you were lucky when you got there that it was your turn, your traffic turn to go up. If you missed that, you had to wait
for the turnaround.
The others to come down. And that was another trying rattle and being thrown in the truck with nothing to hang on to. Nothing to hang on to, and although you're going slow, you're still going round the curves and that was the challenging part. But anyway, we arrived.
Yep.
I think we must have gone to Darra. Mum's house that she bought in Darra.
So Mum sold Sydney.
Oh yes, yes.
And now next house you're remembering is Darra.
Darra.
Yeah.
Exactly.
What was that like there?
Oh, that wasn't too bad. I think it was a bigger house, 2 bedrooms. Tamara and I shared a bedroom, and Mum and Grandma shared a bedroom, and there was lounge. It was separate. It was a fairly large block, but it was opposite Queensland Cement and Lime Factory.
That could be troublesome back then.
Yes, it was very troublesome then because everything was laid with about half an inch of cement dust.
Huh.
They didn't have environmental control in those days. Whatever came out of that chimney landed on the houses. And
so we'd be talking like 62-ish, 1962-ish?
Yeah, around about 1962.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Around about there.
60 years ago.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Well, it's no longer there now. It was sold to overseas company. No, it was sold to Cement Australia. Then Cement Australia was sold to... So it was changed hands so many times and it's Sunstate Cement took over.
Well, there you go. How ironic's that?
Yeah, that's right.
Which
yes.
we'll unpack that
that's at a later,
another chapter.
That's right. Yes,
But,
absolutely.
Yeah, okay. So in Darra, like schooling?
Schooling, yes, schooling. I was enrolled into State Commercial High School, and I had to catch a train from Darra Station right into the city. And then you walk from Roma Street Station to Botanical Gardens because that's where the school was situated. But grandmother used to give me 3p to catch a bus from Roma Street to the school and another 3p to come back again. But I had my eye on this pair of thongs. I can still see them. They were black with gold straps on them.
Yeah, okay.
And they were £1.99.
Yep.
Or £1. Anyway, it was still in old currency. And of course I couldn't afford it. And so I started saving these 3p.
And walking.
And
Well, look, that's one way to get paid by the sounds of it.
Well, that was my introduction, I suppose, that if you wanted something, you had to work for it.
Yeah.
And that was it.
So you did.
But the school itself was very challenging for me because I did 6 grades under New South Wales education system. And then I was thrown into Queensland system, which started a high school at grade 8. Yeah, grade 8, that's right. Grade 9, sub-junior and junior. So I missed out on grade 7 and 8. I missed that completely. And my English still wasn't very good. And so I was completely lost in fundamental subjects.
Yeah.
Like
science, math, English,
and that
geography.
Was all,
all the
academic subjects.
Yeah.
My lifesaver there was that it was a commercial high school. So they had commercial subjects, 3 commercial subjects.
Yeah. So to skill you up to get a job.
Yeah, that's right.
somewhere
And,
in this,
and
industry.
predominantly it was open for boys and girls, but we only had 2 boys in our class because girls were the ones that worked in the office. Environment.
Yep.
So we did bookkeeping,
Yep.
which I excelled in because it involved maths, and maths was my strongest subject,
Yeah, okay.
basic maths.
Yep.
And then bookkeeping, well, that was part of the maths part. Typing, that was new. I had to learn typing, and that was okay. I learned that. But shorthand, I was lost there. All these squiggly bits. You know, what letter of alphabet is that, and how to. I did okay, but I never had to use it in an office environment. I never applied for a job that needed shorthand and deciphering it.
Yeah.
So that was my high school here, I think. And travelling from Darra to city was okay. But travelling from the farm, when we moved to the farm after Mum and Dad got married, that was a different kettle of fish altogether.
So from Darra to where?
From Darra we moved to the farm, which was on Beaudesert Road at what is now Callensvale. Before it was all part of, it was bush.
Yeah.
It was bush. No neighbours, surrounded by bush on both sides, bush across the road and everything else. So there was a bus that used to go to the boundaries of Brisbane City Council area, where the farm was. That was in Beaudesert Shire.
Okay, so out of Brisbane Shire.
Yes,
Council.
out of Brisbane
Council.
So there was no supporting services there. So either Mum and Dad would either drop me off at that bus stop. I'll travel from there to Maruka, which was probably, I'm not too sure how many kilometres it was, but it was quite a journey to get to Maruka. And Maruka, I caught a tram to go into the city and then walk again to the school.
Earn your 3 pence.
In that state, no, because I already got my shoes by then, my thongs by
What
then.
were you saving for next?
Oh, I wasn't saving for anything. I was just
Pay-
sort of but yeah, I got
paying
my
the
thongs,
3 pence.
and that was it.
Okay, so you started catching.
Sometimes I caught the bus, and sometimes I walked. I didn't mind the walk because the walk was a lot shorter from Queen Street to the Botanical Gardens, only about 3 blocks. As from Roma Street, it was a much longer walk because you had probably 5 or 6 blocks. So it was more feasible to catch a bus there.
Sure.
And at the other one, yeah, you just walked, I think. Yeah.
Okay, so you mentioned Mum and Stepan got married.
Yes.
You moved to the farm.
The farm, yes.
What sort of a farm was it? And tell us about Stepan.
Okay. Well, Stefan was divorced, and he had to wait for his divorce for 5 years because you couldn't just get an instant divorce as they do now. So he was already in the process of getting divorced. So when he got divorced, then Mum and Dad got married.
Okay, yep.
And we moved to the farm, which was a poultry farm. He had up to about 5,000 chooks on there, all free range, walking around in the enclosures there. And then they had the sheds where they used to go in there and roost for the night. But in their sheds were also the boxes for eggs, for them to lay their eggs.
Oh, yep. Yeah. Like laying
Pens
boxes.
or whatever you want, and things. So when they were sort of in summer months, that's their peak laying season, you had to collect eggs twice a day, in the morning and in the afternoon. Because if you didn't, they would go and lay their eggs one on the top of each other. It was a very high risk or very high breakage, the eggs. So we used to use those eggs for cooking and things like that. You couldn't pack them or anything like that. So you had to be very, very diligent in feeding them, because you don't feed them on time or anything. They're very temperamental.
Breaks their rhythm of laying.
Laying, and that's right, yes. So there was a lot more to it than meets the eye, sort of having a poultry farm. And that was a chore that I used to hate. You come back from school, you're tired, and you had to go with this big bucket with straw underneath and collect these eggs, and you had to pick them up very gently, put them one on the top of the other, sort of thing. And they used to get quite heavy. And this particular afternoon, I remember I was so angry, so frustrated, and so upset with the whole situation. So I took it out on the eggs. There was the sheds for there, so I picked this particular shed and I start throwing eggs at the shed, breaking eggs on the shed there.
Take this, take that, you bad egg.
Yeah, this is it. How Mum and Dad didn't notice the streaks of eggs on the walls of the shed, I don't know. But I broke quite a few eggs, and then I thought, well, I better get rid of these shells. So I went and threw them in the bush, I think. So that was, yes, my frustration there. Having said that, in winter time, when it was a little bit low period in laying, Dad used to take us to the beach.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And for the day, but it was very strict, limited time, you know. You had to be back by a certain time. Everything was ruled by these chooks and their eggs. And
sounds a bit like a dairy farmer.
Well, probably.
You're basically tied to this time period of the day, 24/7. Oh, yeah, 7
milk
days
the
a week.
cows and feed them and everything else.
So
yes.
it's
It was
a demanding.
demanding. And as a young kid, you know, 12, 13, 14 years old, that was very dramatic. There was no neighbours to us. My school friends couldn't come and visit me. I couldn't go and visit them. It was very isolated.
I guess, with in that age group, that social with peers becomes very important. You know, kicking off like 11 years old, 12 years old, you can see young people, or the clock that we're wired with, that social connection. So, that's kind of, it would be isolating.
Very isolating.
Yeah.
And bearing in mind, I left a lot of my friends in Sydney to come to here.
So it wasn't flourishing like it was in Sydney.
No, absolutely not, you know. And I had a very good friend in high school. She was Ukrainian. Her name was Anna, and we formed a friendship for those 2 years. You know, we stuck together.
At commercial school.
At the commercial high school, And we used to, because it was all buildings there. I don't know whether you know the concept of where it was. No. It was at the end of George Street. When you're driving down George Street, you had the end of Botanical Gardens on one side. In the corner there, and then you had the Parliament House on the other side.
Okay.
Sort of as you come onto freeway now, your Parliament House is on the left-hand side. Next to the Parliament House was the State Commercial High School.
Okay, and then the Botanical Garden.
And
as
the Botanical
you're going
on the opposite side.
Okay, so we're heading south on Corrie Drive.
Yeah. No, you can. That way, if that sort of makes a bit of sense.
Yeah, but a little, roughly, no.
You know roughly where it is.
Opposite South Bank.
Yes, opposite South Bank, absolutely. Yeah. And when you look at it, it's all buildings there.
Yeah.
There's no, so the high school didn't have its own playground or anything. Our playground was Botanical Gardens. That's where we used to go and have our lunch and socialise and things like that. But we had a boundary. You couldn't go outside that boundary. They had what they call prefects. They used to police anybody who was outside that boundary.
Outside the limits.
Outside the limits got detention.
Oh.
And so that was, I think the high school was pretty much, and I finished high school quite miserably because I failed most of my academic subjects, but I did well in the commercial subjects.
And you mentioned Dad taking you down the coast.
Stepan, yes. Yeah, we used to go down the coast there. And a couple of times at Tugun, he would set up tent. There used to be an area where you can set up tent. So he set that up, and Grandma and us kids were there for a week or so.
Okay, it's like camp there.
Like a little camp.
Yeah, nice.
That was really good. I really
That'd be
enjoyed
cool.
that. Yeah, it was
Cool,
good.
actually,
Yeah, that
yeah.
was, yeah. But coming back to the beach here, the first Christmas that we had in Brisbane, you might remember Auntie Nadia and Uncle Sid.
I do. They had those dogs with big, long, jagged ears.
Yeah. Auntie Nadia still has one.
Cocker Spaniel?
Yes, Cocker Spaniels, yes. And they had a house in Broadbeach,
Yep.
because they were always renovating and building and things like that. But this particular time, they had a house in Broadbeach. So they invited us to come and stay with them for, I don't know, a week or whatever it was. I don't know whether grandmother came with us or not. She might have. But this particular day, Tamara and I, we went to the beach by ourselves. And we've done that before.
When you were staying at Sid and Nadia's.
The place,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah. We've done that before. So we went to the beach. The only point was I got caught in a rib. And I can't swim. I still can't swim. So
That's problematic.
it was problematic, yeah.
Yeah.
I think I put my hand up. I think somebody noticed that I was in difficulty. I went down twice. And the lifesaver came and grabbed me. He was on the line. He came and grabbed me, and of course I wanted to grab him. And he sort of came around and took me from the back. So otherwise I would have probably pulled him under
Taking him out
as well.
Yeah.
So we got to the bank, and they put me on the sand, and I coughed up all this salt water, and as you would, and I made Tamara swear not to tell anybody about it. And she didn't, as far as I know. I don't think.
Now you're squealing.
Yeah, that's right.
Secrets on...
Mum and grandmother and Stepan are out of the picture, so it doesn't matter now.
So it sounded like you didn't want Mum or Grandma or Stepan or Dad to...
Yeah, be worried or upset about
Yeah,
it,
okay.
or even Nadia for letting us go by ourselves and things. I don't know. Yeah, but no.
Could have restricted your future freedom.
That's right, exactly. That's how I probably saw it.
Liberty for all.
But that was sort of my brush with death, I suppose, if you want to put it that way. It was quite a traumatic experience, but once I recovered, I was okay. I was ready to go and rock and roll.
Yeah.
And we went back home. Then we didn't go into the water again.
Yeah,
But then I've learned that there are dangerous spots nobody warned us about that. You know, I thought I was within the flags, so I told us within the flags, but sometimes with the rip you can get caught. You drift.
Or lose your bearings in relation to them.
Yeah.
But a lot of guys, we've watched Bondi Beach Rescue a few times, and tourists come to the beach, but they don't understand the dynamics of the currents.
Yes.
And generally, when you don't understand, you get into trouble. And so, but the guys go out and pull people in, and
Thank God for the lifesavers.
Absolutely, named appropriately.
Yeah, exactly,
Named
exactly.
appropriately.
So that was my little episode of
being a beach girl.
Being a beach girl. It didn't stop me going from the beach, you know.
No.
I was a lot more cautious, I think, and a lot more aware of my surroundings, and yeah.
So were you into these suntans and stuff like that back then, or it really wasn't
No, that wasn't
fashionable?
a real thing. No,
Okay.
we sort of were careful. We didn't want to get burnt,
Yeah.
but I don't think we put any lotion, protection lotions or anything like that. We just limited our time exposure to the sun.
Yeah.
I think that probably would have been more to it. And yes, that was my little episode on Broadbeach.
Broadbeach.
Yes, it was very broad too.
Yeah, well, look, it sounds like your schooling days are coming to an end.
Yes.
You know, you've encountered the beach, the sand, the surf.
All of that.
So what's it looking like as school sort of starts to fade and you move forward?
Move forward. My first job was at about age 14, 15, whatever, straight after school. Dad had connection with the Seventh-day Adventist conference.
Okay.
Because he was a treasurer of the church, Russian church, so he used to go and pick up things and drop things off, and he put his feelers out. And this guy says, I know where could be a position open. It's a photographic laboratory. It is owned by a Seventh-day Adventist doctor. He's not involved in it, but he owns the business. I was trying to think of his name, but anyway, it's irrelevant. I don't think I ever met him, but it was a photographic laboratory. In those days, all the photos and things were on a film.
Didn't you have digital cameras back in
No.
63, 64?
No.
Really?
No. My first camera in those days was a brownie box.
You want to explain what that is to the generation today?
It was a box camera. It was about that big, that wide, and had a lens in front, and it had a shutter.
Okay.
And the film was loaded from
Inside.
the back there.
Yeah, okay.
And you took photos of it. And I think you had to make sure that you rewind the film, that you just
So you don't expose it
double
to
expose
light,
it.
yeah,
Yeah.
when you take it
And-
out to get
yeah.
it processed.
Oh yeah, and also so you don't
expose
expose
it to light twice.
to light. Yeah,
or
that's right.
wash it out.
Yeah, that's it.
So what was your role there?
My role there was I did a bit of office work, preparing all the invoices, answering the phone calls, and some orders and things like that. But it wasn't really a full-time occupation as such.
As in that role?
As in that role.
Yeah.
So I used to help upstairs where once they processed the film and printed the photos, they were dried and they bring them over. You had to use a guillotine to cut them a complete square, trim them, and then, get the negatives and make sure the negatives or the photos matched the negatives. The prints.
Yeah. And package them
and packaging and
for
then
the customer to pick
for
up.
the customers, yes. And in those days, the people used to drop their films off at the chemists.
Yeah.
They were like depots for them. And so it was my duty, once it was all completed, sorted out in their bags and things, I would go and travel from the valley, that's where the business was, into town and drop those
at the different chemist depots.
chemists, and pick up any films that they might have from the customers.
Oh, yep.
So it was an exchange. And once I finished that, then I was free to go home. And so it was a challenging time. And I used to love going to David Jones and Maya and things like that, looking all the things when I was finished, or en route to, actually it wasn't Maya called then, it wasn't called Maya then, it was called Alan Starks.
Okay.
Before, and that was in the Queen Street. It had a dual entrance, Queen Street and Adelaide Street. That's where it was. And then Maya took them over. And it was really interesting I wouldn't say exciting time because there wasn't anybody of my age.
So you still haven't sort of connected with peers, like your age group outside. School's done.
Done, yeah.
And so in the workforce, you still
They
not...
were all adults.
And you would have been 14, 15? 15?
Yeah, 14, I would say. I think
Yeah.
probably started at 14.
Mm-hmm.
And, yeah, 14, 15. And there was nobody my age group. There was nobody in the church, in the Russian church. They were all oldies. You know, so there was nowhere for me to associate with people my
Peers,
own
yeah.
age. Yeah.
Mm.
In Sydney, no, we won't, that's all right. Skip that. I've heard about Pathfinders.
So for
And I
those
think-
who don't know about Pathfinders, what's that?
It's like a scout movement. I suppose everybody knows about scouts.
Most would, some may not.
May not. Yeah, it's for young people to develop their characters, to be with nature, camping, learning all sorts of skills to prepare them for their adulthood and things. You probably remember from your days because
I do.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Pathfinders.
activities local, like wherever you lived, wherever you met, but also camping.
Camping.
Like you said, building character to be successful in life, because character is what the platform we operate from in life.
In life, absolutely.
And so yeah.
It was interesting, but I couldn't go to them regularly. Sometimes Mum and Dad would drop me off at South Brisbane Church because that would have been on the way to the Russian church, which was at Wollongabba.
Okay. Yep.
So they would drop me off, but it was too far and few in between for me to be
any solid connection with
any
peers.
solid connection with the peers or even follow the program or anything like that. So it wasn't.
So your first job, what'd you buy with your first pay?
Yes, the most important thing. Yes, my hair. I had very long hair, and I was having a lot of headaches. And Mum took me to the doctors to get an explanation. Why I'm getting these headaches? You know, I'm only young. Why am I getting these headaches? And he looked at me and he said, cut her hair. And Mum was horrified at that. Cut her hair? How's that going to sort of, you know? And she still wouldn't do it. Didn't take
Wasn't
doctor's
convinced.
She wasn't convinced. The doctor was against, you know, she wouldn't take doctor's advice. So, my very first pay, I was so excited about it. Straight after work, I went to the hairdressers. I already made the appointment to the hairdressers. It was in town. It was in Edward Street. I still remember that. And so I went over there and got my hair cut. They plaited my hair, put a rubber band on the top and the bottom and gave me the plait. I had it for years and years. I don't know what I've done with it now. But anyway, I got my hair cut and I got it permed. And then I rocked up front, home.
Went home. Back to
the farm.
Back to the farm?
The farm, yeah. We were living at the farm by that stage, yes.
So you went...
Yeah.
You worked in the city?
Yes.
Got your hair cut in the city?
Yes.
Sounds like you're like getting a bit of city life into you. And then back to the farm?
Back to the farm. Had to go back to the farm.
And
I think Dad picked me up from the bus stop.
Uh-huh.
I don't think it was Mum. I can't be 100% sure.
Yeah.
But I know when I got home, sort of, as they say, all hell broke loose. I went against my mother's wishes.
Yeah.
I asserted my own authority.
Independence.
And things. So grandmother was okay. She didn't, she probably saw this funny side of it because somebody stood up to her daughter, you know.
Okay, sounds like Mum was had opinions,
She had very
which she
strong
put them out
opinions,
there
yeah,
to others.
to others. And also, I'm not too sure whether I mentioned before, but grandmother had 5 children, and only Mum survived.
Okay,
So Mum had that single child syndrome,
yeah,
which was spoiled, I would say, by grandma,
revolves
as you
around.
would,
Yeah,
because you only got one surviving child. That's your only treasure. So Mum had a bit of an attitude problem, I would say, if you can put it that way.
sure, yeah.
You know, yes. So she didn't like the idea that I got my hair cut. It was about 2 or 3 months before she actually spoke to me properly. She would say, Maria, do this, or Maria, do that, whatever, give orders or whatever.
But not warm.
No,
Yeah.
not so ever. How dare I go against her rule or whatever, So that was interesting.
I guess, that 3 months, whatever it was, where she was cooler because from that incident.
Yeah.
And you can see, I could see that processing of when you have a child, you're in complete governance. And there comes a time
When that child's
where
got to
have their own, and if you're not sort of phasing over that 15 years, it can be quite abrupt, and it can be quite a culture shock. A shock that
she's growing up.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But having said that, she should have been aware that I was very independent, because I took that responsibility of looking after Mum's affairs in a way in Sydney,
True.
paying the bills and doing all these.
As a 9-year-old.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and finding all my way around there with money entrusted to me. So she should have realised, I suppose, that I was a little bit different to your normal child, because I was already exposed to adult world, if you want to put it that way.
Well, it sounds like in that 3 months is where she processed it and came to a point where to face you with warmth and things again.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're probably right. And I think it's just something that came to my mind. My main trigger point after that was one time, it was Saturday afternoon, and I still had long hair, and they were going to the church. They came home, we had lunch, they fed the chickens, and they were going back to church for the afternoon service. And I said, I don't want to go to church for the afternoon service. And so my mother grabbed me by my hair and pulled me into the car. Get in, sort of thing.
That's pretty rugged.
It was pretty rugged. Yeah. And I think that, plus the doctor's advice, were the main key issues while I got my hair cut.
What, so your mum couldn't get a handle of you again?
Yeah, well, I wasn't going to, that's right.
That'd be a vulnerable point, really.
Yes.
Your long hair in that physical...
Contact.
Yeah. Yeah.
Absolutely. She just grabbed me and how dare I defy her orders? And I was probably just before I started work, I think. Yeah, and when I got my own resources, that was the first thing I was going to get cut off for 2 reasons.
What did you buy with your second pay?
What did I buy with my second pay?
So the first pay cost
second
pay for your haircut.
Yes, yeah, high heel shoes. I wanted a pair of high heel, shoes with a heel on it. Even not a real high heel, a small one, since the age of about high school and started going to high school. Everybody else was wearing them. No, you can't have it, you can't have it, you can't have it. So I went, and I actually had to put them on lay-by because I didn't have enough money. And it was a red pair of Jane Devster's shoes, I still remember, and pointy toes and stiletto high heels. So
went to the top shelf.
Top shelf I did, yes. Once I paid them off, I brought them home and I showed it to everybody. I think by that time, I can't remember Mum's reaction to it. She probably gave up on me by then.
Or come to terms.
Yeah, or come to terms
Yeah.
or something. Yeah, well, that's what I mean, gave up on
Yeah.
me. Trying to reform me or do
Keep you
things.
in the same power position.
Yes, yeah, I think so. So that was the life on the farm, and
So you started working, you've done your schooling, you started working.
Yeah.
How's your social life going around this time?
non-existent.
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 Mm.
Because we were so isolated,
Mm.
you know, yeah, nothing there.
Mm.
So I suppose at the age of about 14, I met your dad because he came to the Russian church.
Mm. What was his name?
Henry Adolf Bohm. Yes.
Henry Adolf Bohm.
Yes, he was
That's-
named after Hitler, Adolf.
Yeah, well, look, a lot of people,
Were deceived by his
Yeah.
intentions, and from history too, it's he did a fair bit of good for Germany in the
Yeah,
beginning.
sure,
So
yeah.
he was a hero
Yeah.
after the war. He was the hero, you know,
Right.
put Germany back, rebuild Germany.
rebuild base, yeah.
Basically rebuild. So Oma named him, I'm glad she didn't call him Adolf Henry Bohm.
Yeah, well, that would have been challenging with
Challenging, yes.
the legacy Hitler left with Adolf.
With Adolf,
The
yes.
tag
That
Adolf.
wasn't, but your dad hated it. The name
Adolf.
Adolf, yeah.
Because
never-
he would have been aware, well, Hitler would have
well,
shown his true colours and aware of
yeah.
it, yeah.
That's, once he got older, you
Yeah.
know, when he came to Brisbane, he was 19 years old, so he already would have seen the division also in Germany. And
East and West.
East and West.
Yeah.
Well, we'll cover that subject later. That was when I met your dad
Mm-hmm. How'd you meet?
in the Russian church.
Okay.
He came to the Russian church.
Yep.
And so Mum and Dad invited him over for lunch, as they normally did with people who were new to the church.
Okay, so
Or
the showed hospitality.
Absolutely. Yeah. And we nearly always had somebody over for lunch on Saturday. Grandmother used to do the cooking, usually 2 or 3 chooks that Dad chopped the heads off the day before. And she would cook them and bake and everything. She looked after the farm for Stepan and Mum, although Mum was working. But as somebody made a comment in the church, he says, well, Stepan got a free labour when he got married.
Well, look, living on the land, there's things to do.
There's things to do.
There's things to
yes.
do, and
Yeah.
it's a tough gig if you're on your own.
On your own, absolutely.
But if you've got a bit of a team,
Yes.
everyone chips in to make the farm work.
Yeah. And Mum was working at that time when we moved to Brisbane. She
Yeah.
got a job at Webster's biscuit factory.
Oh, okay.
So that sort of supplemented the farm. There wasn't a lot of money, I don't think, to be made on the farm. It was always a struggle.
Yep.
So it was great. It was left up to Grandma to do all the domestic work. And did all the cooking and everything that had to be done. And so that was her role. And also
in the family.
yeah, and also go and collect eggs from time to time. Not very often, I must say, but every so often she would go and help us to get them. She stayed in
the house.
in the
more.
house
Yeah.
more.
Yeah. Yeah. Fair enough.
But that allowed Mum to come from work,
Yeah.
sort the eggs. We just used to collect them in big buckets, and she'll sort them and wipe any dirt on them and pack them into these
Crates or
crates,
trays.
into trays, and then they were taken to the egg board, and then they would resort them again and packaged them into
Retail.
retail boxes, and they would pay onto the grades of the size of the eggs according to their grading, and pay Dad for the eggs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. And so, how old were you when you met Henry or Dad?
About 14, because I was still in high school.
And okay, so you met him in high school before
I was
you.
still in high school.
Yep.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
And obviously from there you guys hung out a bit.
We hung out a bit. Yeah. Well, we were thrown in together, I suppose. Because there was no other young people for him to socialise with. I was the only young person there, and he was the only young guy there. All the others were oldies, and
And
so circumstances, I suppose.
so you were 14. How old was Dad?
He would have been about 21, I think. 2021.
Okay.
There's a big age difference with us.
Yep.
But I suppose when I talk to some people, counsellors for instance, they pointed out to me that I was forever looking for a father figure. Because all the male people that I was involved with, they were all older than me, quite a fair bit older than me.
No, Anatoly was 30 plus mum.
Mum, yeah.
Yeah.
So he was in my life for a very, very short period of time in comparison. And he had other things to really worry about, running the business and, being interrogated and getting ready. Will we get out? And his health issues and things. So I suppose there was little interaction with him.
He was tied up.
Yeah, he was tied up.
He was tied up with the struggle of life over there and the dynamics. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. So that was that bit. So we're going to round up now and continue on tomorrow or next session.
Yep.
Are you happy with that?
Yeah, absolutely. I think we've had a good chat today, time-wise and content. So we'll pick up, from you meeting Dad, 21, 14, and we'll kick off there next time.
Yes. Sounds like the plan.
Question.
Yes.
When did you have your first Vegemite and peanut butter sandwich?
Oh. Second day of arrival in Australia.
Oh, there you go. In the land down under.
Yeah, in there.
How about Wheat Bix?
The same, for breakfast.
Look out.
We arrived, it was late or early in the evening, it was dark, so we had a normal meal.
Yep.
But the next day, for breakfast, we were Vegemite and,
Wow. Was bread a new concept for you?
Oh, yes, absolutely.
So you really didn't eat bread over in China?
Oh, we ate bread, but we ate it as a complement to a meal.
Okay, not as a
sandwich or toast or anything like that. It was very...
Break it off or something?
Yeah, just break it off or slice it, home slice. Not getting slices out of the packets like you do here.
Yeah.
Now, it was all homemade.
Yeah.
Grandmother used to bake all the bread and things.
Yeah, cool. All right, well, I'm glad you got your Vegemite sandwich and your Wheat Bix.
I did.
Great Australian icons.
Love that.
So next time we'll pick up on you and Dad.
Yes.
And we'll go from there.
That sounds like a good plan.
Yeah. So we'll just say goodbye to our viewers for now, and we'll see you next time we get the cameras rolling.
Yes. Good one.
All right.